Hi, in this video we are going to discuss what is cloning in a delta table, why we need a cloning, and what are its two types. We will understand those in more detail through a demo, and we will understand the difference from each and every perspective. So let's get started with the definition part. So cloning in delta, it is like creating a new table from an existing table. And when we create a new table, so there we get two options basically, like replicating only metadata or complete data. That is where we have two types of cloning. So first type, it is shallow cloning. In shallow cloning, what happens is like the new table that we create, so only the metadata part is cloned uh, in terms of delta logs, and the underlying data files, the bigger file which contain the actual data, those are not copied. The new table still use the older file from the older table location. We will understand this more when we go to the demo part. There you will get more idea, but simply it copies only metadata, not the actual data. And the second type, it is the deep clone, as you may have guessed already. So it copies everything. It copies metadata as well as the complete data. So it creates a complete new copy of the table. So before we understand the differences more, first let's go to the demo and let's understand the underlying things. Now I'm in my Databricks workspace. So we will start by creating a new table, and this table currently we are writing only some sample data that we have. Now the table is created and these three rows are written into the table, and this same data, let's write it into a particular location as well, so that we can see there what kind of files are created. And it is in append mode, so I'm going to run it couple of times. So now if I read this same location and I display, I can see that it has returned 15 rows. So I ran the above code 5 times in the append mode, so it has written the same data 5 times. So this is our source table that is there. Now if we want to create a clone, so this is the syntax, like create or replace table, then the new table that we want to create a clone, and then like a shallow clone if we want to do a shallow cloning, and then the name of the source table. So this is our source table, this is the target table which will be created as a shallow clone. So this is how like the shallow clone is created in terms of syntax. And if we want to do a deep cloning, then like syntax is almost the same, just this shallow keyword we need to replace it with deep. So if I run it this time, then it will be like it will do a deep cloning. And in shallow cloning, if you see, so here it is showing like how many files from source were used, and how many files like were removed, because in my case this table was already existing, so older data I deleted, and how many file it has copied. So here we can see that it has not copied any file. In case of deep clone, if we go there, here we will find that it has like removed the old file and it has copied a new file also. So this is where the difference will come, like it doesn't copy any file in case of shallow cloning, and in case of deep cloning it copies the actual file or files also, whichever are there in the source table. And by default, if we don't specify this keyword, just specify clone, so by default it is a deep cloning, so automatically it will do deep cloning. And to understand more about this copying the file, so let's go to this particular location where we had written the data so that we understand it more. So here is the location that I had specified. This is my volume, and if we go inside, so here we will see that there are two types of files. So in this outer location we have these Parquet files, and as you may be aware, so these Parquet file, these contain the actual data. So as I had run the code 5 times in append mode, each of this file it contains those 3 records. And then there is this delta log folder which contain the transaction logs, like just a historical, like what all operations are being done, and which of these Parquet file contain the latest data. So when we do shallow cloning, then only this folder gets copied, only delta logs get copied to the new table. These Parquet file which actually contain data, those are not copied. In the new clone location, it still reference these files. It stores the location of these files in their delta log. So whenever we query the clone table, it will query the data, actual data from the original location only. And if we are doing a deep cloning, then what it will do is, along with this delta log folder or files inside it, it also copy these files over to the new location. So in the deep cloning case, if we query the new table, it will be copying those new files. So it has no link after, no link to the original source file after doing a deep cloning. So this is how these two are different. Now let's understand more differences from different perspectives. So here are all the differences. So let's go one by one. So in case of what gets copied, so we understood that the metadata, that means the table is created in Unity catalog, that metadata, and the delta logs, these are copied. In case of deep clone, all the data files, Parquet files are also copied. In terms of speed, shallow clone is very fast because it do not copy the actual data, so it saves a lot of time. A deep clone, it is slower, like if data volume is huge, so it will copy the actual file, so it takes some time. In case of storage cost, it is very low because it do not copy the actual files, so there is no additional cost here. Here the cost will be there. If the data files are bigger, it will have good amount of cost as well. And whether it is independent from the source, so shallow clone, no, because it still reference the data files in the original location, so it is still dependent on the original table or the files that are there. And in case of deep clone, it is fully independent copy. It has no link to the source table. And does it work if source table is deleted? So shallow clone, no, because it is still referencing the files in original location. It will break if we delete the table. Wherein deep clone, it is an entirely new copy, it will still work. And what happens when we run vacuum on the source table? So in case of shallow clone, so if we are doing a vacuum on the source table, so some of those files vacuum can delete which are older, but the clone table, it might still reference those files. That is where it will say file not found if that happens. Wherein deep clone, it is more safe and everything is copied, so it is not affected. And whether when we are doing cloning, is there any impact on the source table? So that is no impact on both the cases. Whenever we clone, nothing is changed on the source table. So there it is not aware if we are doing any cloning or anything. So given all these differences, when it comes to use cases, so as we can see that shallow clone, it quickly creates a clone, but there is a chance of failure when the source table is deleted or vacuumed. So this is used only for development or test case, like doing some testing. Let's say if I want to quickly create a shallow clone, I want to delete something and see how many rows are deleted, or if I want to update something or change something quickly and test it. So that is where we use shallow clone. And also one more thing, like after creating shallow clone, if we append some data or let's say try to delete some data or update some data, so the new data file which will be required for this clone table, those will be Parquet file or data file will be created in the new location also, because source location, yeah, it has to be untouched. That's how it works. So that's where it is used only for some quick testing or debugging mode. Wherein deep clone, because it copies everything, so that is where it is used to create proper backup or migrate table from one database to another, or creating an archival of any table. So these are all the use cases. So I hope you got pretty good idea. If you still have any doubts, then let me know in the comments. So thank you for your time. Bye bye.